So the Donald Trump clown show continues, and today we're picking a strange fight with Amazon. Have a take a look at this.
Sean, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Secretary. So it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect, crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
So that's actually a really good question. And effectively, you have to understand the context of it. The White House, Trump, Karen Levitt, all these Trump people keep lying to you about who's going to pay the tariffs. They suggest that China will pay the tariffs, but the reality is that you're going to pay the tariffs. And there was a story that came out. It was a small news publication that basically said Amazon's going to, put on one of their websites that they may include a little like indicator of how much Trump's tariffs are costing you. Listen to her answer on this, though.
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
So she doesn't actually really answer the question, because the question was if Amazon puts the prices of the, effectively the tariff/tax on the website, wouldn't that be a clear indicator that consumers are going to pay the tariff and not China? And she just starts going on about blaming, Biden this, Biden that. This is a political attack. And I want to make this also really clear. They're always going to blame Biden for everything, but inflation, right, was due to the pandemic, was due to the war in Russia and Ukraine. You could also make the case that both Biden and Trump had to deal with, printing a whole bunch of money when there is low supply chains also as part of inflation. So, Biden just for everything, for the cause of, everything in the whole world is not necessarily the case. So I just want to be clear on that. But I understand if you watch Fox News, you just blame Biden for everything. Now, the White House, they attacked Amazon. Amazon made a statement regarding this thing, and I guess that little news story that they were going to put price on there may not necessarily be the true. Well, it's hard to say, but this is what Amazon made their statement on. It says, the team that runs our ultra low cost Amazon Haul store has considered the idea of listing import charges on certain products. This was never a consideration for the main Amazon site, and nothing has been implemented on any Amazon properties. This was never approved and is not going to happen. So I don't know the full story. You have to ask Amazon. Sometimes, though, companies may try like a test thing as a branch of their company to see if they can float this whole thing politically, because, maybe they want to give it a go. But ultimately, I don't think it's going to go so well because, Amazon's trying to keep a good relationship with the Trump people. This is what Trump had to say about this.
Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly, and he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
So I guess we're all nice and good guys. But that was the weird attack on Amazon this morning. Regarding Amazon, though, this is a real issue, and also it relates to UPS. If you're curious about the state of the economy and the state of the consumers, just look at business activity. Are people shopping or not, basically, right? Because it's like in the U.S., about 2/3 of the GDP is consumerism, right? People shopping, people buying stuff, keeping the money flowing. UPS is going to cut some jobs. I guess they're delivering less packages for Amazon. And then you're also going to have, look at what UPS says, look at what FedEx says, and we'll see what Amazon overall says. But 20,000 jobs is actually pretty significant. So do you want to mention that? Let's take a look at more of what the White House has to say about what's going on.
The big tax on consumers that goes unnoticed is deregulation or regulation, and we are deregulating and bringing that down. So
he makes these arguments, and I want to go over it because I think it's an important one, of where deregulation is going to be awesome for the consumer, etc. Not necessarily, okay? So I'll give you a couple examples. So one would be, as they push for deregulation, that would mean then Elon Musk can get all of his, dangerous cars on the road. It's not just Elon Musk, but any number of companies can basically put out products that aren't really healthy for consumers, be it food, be it financial, be it auto or whatever, right? So I believe in regulations to protect consumers from dangerous products. That would be one. He'll also make the case that, deregulation is awesome to bring down prices because then we can drill more everywhere. Maybe, right? I'll be honest with you, maybe, but there's some caveats with this. So yes, if you put more supply of, oil on the market, prices would come down, maybe, because the oil companies don't want to drive prices too far down. So they don't want to over drill. Then you have the environmental concerns as well. So don't think necessarily deregulation is the solution to everything. I disagree wholeheartedly on this stuff, but I just want to be fair on how we talk about it. Deregulation could also make monopolies worse. So that's not really good for consumers either. I mean, overall, I'm not a fan of the deregulation stuff, but I just want you guys to think about like some of the pros and cons of deregulation. You can make the case though for, say, deregulation, things would come faster to the consumer, right? That would be, you could argue that, but at the cost of safety and protections for you. So that would be the arguments that I would make. Regarding, what the Trump is up to today, honestly, it's hard to keep track because it changes all the time. So now I guess maybe we're not going to be having tariffs on auto parts or something. It's like at 25% now, but then they're saying, maybe it might go 10 or 15%. It's honestly really hard to keep track. And that's sort of, they get defensive when we ask them like more clarification on this stuff. But, that's the job of people is to ask them like, hey, please clarify what you're saying because we can't understand you. It's not that we're stupid. It's just like you keep changing your answers. Here's another question I think is worth watching. Let's have a look at this.
Much for being here. I have a question for Secretary Bessent. On tariffs, the president said over the weekend that we are hoping that maybe tariff revenues could replace income tax. But we also keep hearing about the deals that the administration is pursuing. So my question is, what is the White House's ultimate objective here? Do you want to have long-term tariff revenue or deals that might reduce those tariffs?
So that's actually a good question, right? How are we going to fund things, basically? And remember, the tariffs keep changing. That's why I showed you the auto one. Because if you're trying to, fund the government and, make sure things are working, properly, you want to have a steady stream of revenue so you can project what to do with the future and staffing levels and spending levels, all kind of things. But with tariffs, right? Trump changes the percentage it's going to be. Also, what if business activity slows entirely? Then suddenly, you don't have nearly the revenue stream. There's any number of things that are in play here. And so could you even, replace income tax with tariffs at all? And that's what they've been floating, which is kind of nuts. They've been floating getting rid of the income tax and pro-tariff. Let's see what they have to say about this, though.
I think it's a combination of both. So we're going to take in long-term tariff revenue. We put a process in place. We have 18 important trading relationships. We will be speaking to all of those partners, or at least 17 of them.
And he does that every time he's like either lying or kind of changing the answer. He's got a terrible poker face. He does that, or he'll adjust his glasses. I've seen it multiple times to where it becomes really obvious. Let me show you some more. You can see.
The Chinese continue to say that the U.S. and China are not engaged in any consultation or negotiation.
Right, so she's asking about, because Trump's been saying, I've already made 200 deals and I'm talking to China and stuff like that. And so people are asking, okay, so if that's true, tell us some details. What's China saying to Trump? Because basically Trump's lying about this stuff. And then they have to try to defend it. So listen to the response here. So are you talking to China or not? That's basically the question.
On tariffs, you recently said you've talked to your counterpart, but more about, quote, traditional things like financial stability. So can you clarify, is the administration talking to Beijing specifically about tariffs or not?
Well, we're not going to talk about who's talking to whom, but I think
that's his answer. We're not going to tell you about who is talking to whom. We got nothing. That's his answer. I just wanted to literally play his answer.
That, over time, we will see that the Chinese tariffs are unsustainable for China. I've seen some.
Yeah, good luck with that. They ask him again about the China. Are you talking to China or not? Have a watch.
They are saying you guys are not talking about it. So is that true?
Look, they have a different form of government. They're playing to a different audience. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, again, of who's talking to whom. But as I said, I believe for the Chinese, These
you know he's really struggling and making crap up when he's like doing it twice. Right. And people have been mentioning too, and I don't know if Saturday Night Live's done it yet, but people are mentioning that if you want to cast, Scott Bassett at Saturday Night Live, Will Ferrell would be the guy. I would agree. Will Ferrell's a tall guy. They look kind of similar. I'm sure Saturday Night Live is going to pick up on the dude's gestures. So basically, whenever he touches his glasses or does that, he's kind of just making crap up. Let's listen to some more. You'll notice it the more you see it.
Very quickly, 2 days ago, you said you didn't know if President Trump had spoken to Xi Jinping. Do you know now?
Again, I would say Caroline and I have a lot of jobs around the White House. Running the switchboard isn't one of them.
Bloomberg, go ahead.
Secretary Bessent, thank you so much for being here.
They gave the same answer again. We have because he did that yesterday. We have a lot of jobs, and it's entering the switchboard isn't one of them. Basically, we got nothing, and you have to show this stuff because if you just kind of read about the headlines and stuff like that over at Fox News, they take Trump's words as being truthful, meaning that Trump is talking to China and they've made 200 trade deals. But when you actually see how they try to defend it, and this is a big problem, is that when Trump surrounds himself with a bunch of these kind of lackeys or toadies or, you could say worm tongues, it misleads a large portion of the U.S. population, which is really sad, to be perfectly frank. And, my opinion on any of these things, I'm fine, guys. We can have different opinions on, whatever policies, but I'm not just going to make up random facts, which is a big issue with the Trump people. They just make stuff up or outright lie. You can see some more here.
Good question. And I think one thing that has been a little disconcerting for the markets is
it's all the same. Listen to Lutnick talking about the jobs that are supposedly going to come back. You can watch more Bassett. He does that quite a bit for his answer. And it's all nonsense. Let's watch some more, though.
Think about it this way. What Apple said is they're going to spend $500 billion building everything that they make except for their consumer small products, right? They're going to do all their AI, all their supercomputers, everything they do in scale, they're going to build in America for $500 billion. So I talked to Tim Cook the other day. I said, when are you going to bring the iPhone? Right? When are you going to bring the iPhone? He said, I need to have the robotic arms, right?
So what's interesting is, remember their argument of why we're having tariffs is that we're going to encourage all these companies to build all those, wonderful factories in the USA and everyone's going to have a job. But literally now he's talking about that we're going to have these robotic arms. So if we're basically automation or, AI. So if that's the case, what are the jobs going to be? If we're going to use robots and automation to, and AI to build stuff, what are the human jobs going to be? And that's kind of like the smoke and mirrors here, guys. He'll make the case we're all going to be technicians, but I mean, I just want you to think in logical ways. If our factories are automated, how many jobs would there possibly be?
Do it at a scale and a precision that I could bring it here. And the day I see that available, it's coming here because I don't like to employ all these people foreign. That's my biggest risk. What if in China there was a strike? Or
another pandemic.
Right, and all of a sudden I lose it. So he wants to build it here. He's going to build it here. And Americans are going to be the technicians who drive those factories. They're not going to be the ones screwing it in. People just take my statements out of context. Americans are going to work in factories just like this on great high-paying jobs. They're going to be trained as technicians, and they're going to have the new industrial revolution. Let's call it the AI industrial revolution. And this is going to give them great jobs, and their children are going to have these great jobs. And we're going to go back to the society we knew, but with factories that look like this, extraordinary factories.
So there are going to be jobs. I'm telling you the truth. There are going to be jobs. Say, I'll just give you examples. So in Amazon, there are many factory jobs, or you could call it, warehouses, processing centers. But we need less people these days because, we have, say, conveyor belts, or the way we move goods around with like the forklifts, this kind of thing can be automated with robots. So you'll have fewer human jobs, right? There will be jobs, and maybe some of these might be high paying. I don't know. I mean, you have to ask Amazon. I know some of these warehouse jobs aren't great paying, and they don't treat the workers so great at Amazon. You guys know this. Apple, it depends on your level of Apple over there, but I think they're really overplaying how many jobs are going to be created by this. And then also too, they do smoke and mirrors with the numbers to where, like, if they announce, say, for example, if there's ever an announcement of a new factory by Apple, they'll say, hey, Apple's got this, new factory coming in. There's going to be 10,000 jobs. But as it'll turn out, it'll be like 9,000 of those jobs will be in building the actual factory. Then after the factory building is done, then the people who work in the factory will just say it could be 1,000 to something like that, or even less. But that's how they play with the numbers, and a lot of stuff that they say is misleading. I love to hear your guys' thoughts on any one of these things. Do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you all in the next video.